I'm so excited that you're watching my show, and I'm so excited about my two guests today. So today is, I have two LinkedIn Lives a week, and today is stories of serendipity and synchronicity. And I'm trying a little something new with my lighting, so it's obviously not 100% working with my glasses, but you can see me okay, and I'll probably play with that a little bit. I've been doing LinkedIn Live for about 6 months, 5 months maybe, and I just love it. And so the story is serendipity and synchronicity because I just love the awe and wonder of life. Like ever since I was a child, I always was the one to go, yeah, but why? But why? Because, now as an adult, I know that this is going to sound, I had a therapist that used to tell me one time, do you understand how intelligent you are? And I'm like, no, I'm the same as everyone else. But my mind was so quick. And then we found out I had ADHD as an adult and all that, blah, 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 depression, all that, blah, blah, blah. So I could figure things out faster than other people. And I would go, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you, And so usually it's my mouth that gets me in trouble and maybe my brain. But
we can relate.
I'll let my two guests introduce themselves. Annie Leib, who's from my hometown, Philly, and I'm going to end up saying water when I get off here. That was one thing I corrected when I came to California many, many years ago, because people will go, what? And I'll go, water. Oh, look.
As you can. Here. Hi, Tisha. Sorry, sometimes I do that. I'm so used to lives. I say hi to the guests.
Yeah, no, she's fine. She's here. And I was talking to someone from Philly, or I was watching that show I was telling you about on HBO, and I said to somebody, could I have some water? And they go, what? And I go, oh my God, I can't believe what I just said.
Well, as soon as you came on, I was telling Mike, as soon as you came on, like one sentence out of your mouth, and I'm like, where are you located? You really sound like you're from Philly. And she said Northeast Philly, and I freaked because it's like it's like home to me. So, all right, so our story. So we're going to talk about basically how everything came together, but let me go back to my 2014 and 2015, because that was probably you talked about ADHD, depression, anxiety, all that stuff. So you're right at home and we're right at home. So in 2014, I had some of my darkest days that I've ever had. And I've had a couple sets of these, but this was a dark time, like hospital, like really not okay. I was seeing in black and white, couldn't see in color anymore, just really down. And, it was just a really, really dark time. In 2015, I signed my divorce papers, and I saw this poem on the wall by Ralph Waldo Emerson, and it had the word breath in it. And I wrote it on a napkin at a restaurant, and I took it to a tattoo parlor about an hour later, and I got it on my hip. And it was just for me, small, written on my hip, hidden. But the word really meant a lot to me, because I felt like I could be stripped of everything, but you couldn't take that from me. That was mine. And at least I had my breath. That's all I felt like I had left. Whoa. So brick by brick, I have built my life back since then. And in 2018, I decided to go back to school. And I was always in pharmaceuticals. I decided to go back to school and get my MBA. And it was a transformative experience for me, because I really, besides all the classes, I really started to see who I was, started to step into my own, no more imposter syndrome, and started to know a little bit more about what I wanted in life. But it was a really trying time. I was engaged at the time. We had 4 kids under 10. It was crazy. And I left the corporate world to start this, go through school and then start this little consulting firm, Annie Leib LLC. So 2020 rolls around and I graduate, but COVID had already hit. And I was trying to get this big corporate job after having put myself through school, and COVID laughed in my face and said, what corporate job? So I was trying to lean into this little consulting job. Hi, KDJ. I was trying to lean into this little consulting job, and I really didn't know which way was up, but I met Mike, and he'll tell you that story, because that's talk about serendipitous and everything. He'll tell you that awesome story. But in the midst of everything, we met, and he's going to tell you that, but we started something called Living with Anitude. And Anitude was like really stepping into your authentic self. And I was very heart-centered at this time. So, and Michael also did a great job at explaining the difference between mind-centered, heart-centered, and soul-centered. So I was almost there. And I would say to Mike, I'm almost there. And we got really, really, really close. And we started to work together. And then we decided to co-develop a program called the Breath Framework. And this is all this is recent, the last few months, really stepping into what we're calling the soul center. And I'm going to let him explain what that is, but really like coming from the passion and the depths of my soul is how I feel about every day these days. Even in my worst days, and today was not a good one, I still feel I'm exactly where I should be with my passion and my purpose and my mission. So in the midst of all of this, I got a coaching client, started doing that a little bit. And we started talking about what we call the breath framework. So remember the story about breath, right? So breath is, B is for begin.
Oh, I love when you have stuff like that. Okay, begin.
R is reclaim your power.
Okay.
E is excavate your core values.
Oh, I love excavate.
A is allow. T is through. And H is healing. So we decided, and you'll hear his story obviously, but our journeys have really together, but also separately have mirrored one another's from childhood, even like abuse and going through childhood and learning who we are, stepping into our soul, our heart center, and then to our soul center. So we developed this framework, the breath framework, based on that word breath. That was so important. And that is how we coach. So we take, it mirrors our journeys personally. And that's how we coach people. And we take them through those kind of steps. And every journey has those steps in them. It doesn't necessarily have to go in order, but and then we decided to really make this into something called the Soul Center. And we started this, which is launching on Tuesday, the Soul Center Experience Live. So Living with Anitude has evolved into the Soul Center Experience Live show. So that launches Tuesday. And we created the Soul Center, which is, there's a group for men and a group for women. That's a private, exclusive, invite-only group for both men alone and women alone that we facilitate. And but our story of meeting and how all of this has come about and what we've been through to this point is extremely serendipitous. But I can't like tell anymore unless he tells you that side of the story first.
Okay, I wrote a lot of stuff down I want to get back to. Some of the stuff I'm like, oh my gosh, this is chapter patent.
So cute.
You know, when I do a live, people go, "Oh my God, did you realize what you just said?" I'm gonna use that. So and I go, "No, I don't even know what I'm saying when I get on these shows."
I get it.
It's like the divine just comes down and channels, and I can't even explain. But oh my gosh, you said so many things that were just amazing. Mike, no pressure, but do you want to follow that?
Sure. I'm just me, right? Like, so that's fine. I mean, I can roll with anything. So basically, I'll just start with the most recent version of my story. I mean, I can go back to childhood and I can talk about all that fun stuff, but that will just weigh this down a little bit. So if we go back to last February, I received evidence of physical abuse against my children. I was in South Florida at the time, and it was probably February 19th, if I remember correctly, around 7 p.m.
Of 2020?
Yeah, 2020.
Okay.
So within 3 days, I drove to Arkansas after stopping in Atlanta to meet with the FBI to file a report and have it go across state lines.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting goosebumps right now.
So I get to Arkansas and I get a lawyer on the 24th or 20, I think it was the 25th of February that I finally signed a lawyer. From that point until March 6th, I was stranded within an hour of my children, helpless, couldn't do anything, by myself in a hotel room where I knew absolutely nobody and was just stranded. Now, keep in mind, when I started this trip, I left with $3.47, I think, in my checking account. So it was tedious and torturous. And I had contracts for consulting and they were all getting canceled pre-COVID because one was in the medical industry and that was shutting down before COVID even really shut down the country.
Right.
So there was many issues going on at the time. And then this happened. So as I was up to this point before February 19th, I was posting a video on LinkedIn every single day. I was sharing my story, sharing where I was at, sharing just being very vulnerable, very raw, very misguided, but doing it in mostly like a spewing fashion, which is okay. I mean, it's allowed when you don't know any different. And as this journey started, my videos got more and more gapped out because I didn't know how to emotionally handle this. I was emotionally numb until basically June of last year. Even being sober 14 years, never did any of the emotional work, never felt free and clear, never felt any of that stuff. I was just sober. Like, there was nothing special about it. I was still miserable. Just a different kind of miserable, and had different escapisms that just wasn't drugs and alcohol. So, and I went through them all. I've tried every single one. None of them really filled the right roles, but I tried very, very hard. So on March 3rd, I posted a video, and there was tears in my eyes. I was broken. I was in serious pain. I was blaming, shaming, guilting myself. I was just miserable by myself. I have a huge network. I have amazing people in my life that all tried to reach out to me, all tried to be there for me, and nothing was getting through. Nothing was getting through at that moment. Annie reached out to me on LinkedIn and connected with me and commented on that video. On March 5th, she sends me a direct message and says, everything is going to be okay soon. Or soon everything will be okay, or whatever it was.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting goosebumps. It's like your personal fortune cookie.
Complete strangers, didn't really know each other. This energetic, cute, blonde, crazy blonde from Philadelphia just sends me a message as I'm stranded, beating myself up, crying myself to sleep, crying pretty much all day long. Sends me this message, tells me everything's going to be okay. Divine intervention, the universe, whatever you want to call it. I wake up the next day about 2:30 in the afternoon. I get a call from my lawyer, said the paperwork went through, go get your kids. So...
Oh my God, you are totally blowing my mind. I need to go get like a sweater or something.
So my mind. Well, that's because you're a true empath and you're a healer and you feel everything and you see everything and you see it for what it is.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's, so I get my kids. We stay in a motel room, me and my 3 kids, for 24 days. All 3 of them abused, neglected in different ways. They were in really bad shape when I got them. They were not in good shape at all. During that time period in a motel, the schools closed down, the whole world closed down because of COVID, and we were just sitting in a hotel room. And I calculated it out, and it would cost about $5,500 a month to stay in the hotel room. Or motel, I'm sorry. It was motel, not a hotel. There's really no hotels out here. So it was like a budget in, and then we would have to go buy 3 meals a day of fast food because all the restaurants closed. Like, it was just horrible. My youngest at that time was 2.5, and her lice were so bad that they were all over all of us. It was just, the amount of neglect was unbelievable. At that point, I sunk into a major depression. Major, just completely blaming myself, shaming myself, guilting myself. And Annie and I didn't really communicate much at all for the next 2 months. Periodically send a message here, send a message there. I checked my thyroid beginning of May, and my thyroid was starting to shut down. So then I got meds adjusted. By the middle of May / let's say end of May, I was getting back to some type of stability mentally and emotionally. I was still beating myself up. I did that my whole life. But I bounced back from the extreme low. George Floyd gets murdered. And I reach out to Gabriel. And I said, we have to do something. And we started these anti-racism roundtables. So we did a bunch of those. But what he said was extremely serendipitous, and it was, why don't we put Annie Leib on the first one? And I said, sure. Inside thinking, okay, why not? Like, makes sense. And around that time period, Annie and I connected again. And when we connected this time, it was at such a deep level that it put ripples through my whole life. I've never felt a connection like that. I've never felt a bond like that. I've never felt impacted like that. I've never felt seen at such a deep level that everything made sense. Yes, it is, Maria.
Hi, Maria.
I've never felt seen at such a deep level. Like, seriously. And I don't think I've ever seen anyone as clear as I saw her either.
Mm-hmm.
She could tell her side. But from that point forward, we became beyond close, inseparable in lots of ways, while also 1,500 miles apart. And we became really close friends and best friends and bonded and reached this level of such a deep bond that it's unbreakable. Now, while we were doing this, we were both still pretty messed up, still pretty broken, and went on this parallel journey with each other, or separately but together, but separately but together. One day in June, she looked at me and said, "You need to read this book and you need to write." And I said, "I don't write and I don't read." So she sent me the audiobook of Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. So 5 subjects.
I'm listening to it on audio right now, and I really need to get it in my hands.
5 subject notebooks later of not writing, which I burned every single page. I went through that whole book. I think now I've listened to it 13 times. And I did the work emotionally, and I got addicted to healing. From there, I went to trauma therapy, trigger therapy. I met my new spiritual guide, who's been guiding me ever since. She's amazing. I've woken up. I've connected to myself on every level. I went through a mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical transformation. And I've made these enormous shifts in my life. And as I've been healing, my kids have been healing. Watching how my vibration, my energy is impacting them. It's amazing. And then watching how the impact of Annie and myself back and forth, and how we impact each other, and how, it's not a straight line, right? Like there's zigzags, push and pull, there's arguing, there's fighting, there's, I hate you, I love you, I hate you, I love you. And it's all over the map, right? And, nobody wants a mirror, right, as they're going through the hardest journey of their life. But we were very fortunate to have each other. And I still believe that to this day. She is the single person in my life that made the absolute greatest impact on me. And I will never say that about anyone else. And by helping me, she's helped save my children. And I will never take that away from her. The impact has been so great that it's a ripple effect through everybody I work with on a daily basis. Now, I did the work. I'm not taking that away from myself, because I did. But she ignited my eternal flame again. She brought that fire to be, she inspired me to be self-inspired and put me back on my path. And in a lot of ways, I did the same for her. But again, she can speak to that. I shouldn't. As for me, it was really identifying my core values in December. It was an enormous impact, because I had no clue what the heck they were. No idea. And then really January, stepping into them and being accountable to myself, being willing to lose anything that meant anything to me in my life, and standing into my core values. That is when the dramatic shift in me happened. When I took accountability to myself and to those that I was closest to me, that I was willing to lose to stand into myself, is when everything changed.
Kenny's crying. So what Mike is describing right now is like when he and I was going through similar journey alone, stepping into what we call our soul center. And that's how basically our movement of stepping into your soul center and the experience has really started.
Well, that is amazing. And I'm sure that is the Reader's Digest condensed version.
Of course.
And, there's more to hear, and I want to hear all of it. And let's go to a little back and forth. Okay. I wrote down a bunch of stuff. I saw on your LinkedIn that you went to St. Joe's. So shout out.
I got my ministers there. Yeah.
Went MBA.
Yeah.
When I lived in Philly, it was like the smart and rich kids went to St. Joe's.
Villanova. Oh, really?
We went to Villanova too, but St. Joe's because I went to Temple because it was
See, we were the real deal. Villanova people were smart and rich. Us, we're like the down to earth, like real deal people at St. Joe's. It's so funny that you felt like that about Temple, which is a great school too.
I went there 2 years and then I finished up here in San Diego at San Diego State. But how about St. Joe's is oftentimes in the basketball final 16 and stuff like that. Crazy.
The Hawk will never die.
No. So, for a little Catholic college, or maybe it's a university now, but I just thought it was interesting that you used the word, Annie, breath and not breathe. Mm-hmm. So tell me more about that.
So it was in a Ralph Waldo Emerson poem. I can pull it up and read you the line, but basically what it says is, it's a pretty famous poem, but I don't know it by heart, but it struck me at that moment. So I was signing my divorce papers at an auto body shop in front of a notary because the notary was there. So I was at it, and this for some reason was on the wall, and I looked up and saw it, and I'm like,
at an auto body
shop in Conshohocken.
In Conshohocken, come on.
Okay.
So we're talking about, I would say that was synchronicity. People have different ideas and versions of what the two words mean.
Yes.
But continue. So what's the name of the poem? Do you know?
Here, let me look it up for you. Hold on.
Because I'm gonna have to put it in my notes if I ever get to them. That's what I love this part and doing this, and then writing up my notes and what we talked about and stuff is not my strong point. So continue.
So the line is, to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. So I saw that and I thought, and that's when I really thought to myself, I'm at the lowest point of my life right now. I don't have anything left, but you can't take that. You can take everything, but you can't take my breath. And I wrote it, and it's written on my hip now, tattooed on my hip. There's one more serendipitous part I have to tell you, though, Joan. I have to jump in and tell you one more part of the story. So I'm talking to Mike one time, because we talk all the time. And I said something, and he went, oh, absolutely. He said, emis. I said, what did you say? He said, emis. I said, I'm Jewish, so I know what emes is. That's Yiddish. It means on the truth. It means truth. So he heard this word. No one ever says this word. It's not like something that people throw around. And I said, I can't believe you just said that. And he said, yeah, I use that when I'm like, when there's absolutely no way there could be anything other than truth in what I'm saying. So time goes by, and I was going to get my other hip tattooed. Right. And I was going to get warrior or something like that. And then we were talking one time and he said MS. And I said, that I don't know. One of us said, that's it. That's what you have to get as your other tattoo. And I said, but I don't want it hidden. I'm going to get it. And I got it. So in Hebrew, it says emet, which it's Yiddish. Yiddish is emes, which means on the truth. So that's another thing that, like, I couldn't believe, like, of all things, that he used that word out of nowhere, because people just don't use that. So that was another.
I'm going to start using it.
And anytime you sneeze, you're sneezing on the truth also, on the MS.
On the MS. I love it.
A lot of times people will say something very true, or they want you to really believe them, and somebody sneezes and you're like, you're sneezing on the truth. On the MS. It's crazy.
That's also serendipity, right?
Very good.
And that reminded me of Viktor Frankl. Have you ever read anything?
Yes, of course.
So like, he's like, you can't take who I am away from you. You can beat me, but I'm still me. And again, I'm getting goosebumps. And you're like, you can't take my breath away from me. I control that.
Yes, that's mine.
Yeah, I love that. And then this is what I think you should quote. I wrote down, and COVID laughs.
And COVID laughs.
Or you could
COVID did laugh at me right in my face.
Or you could say past tense, and COVID laughed. You know how some people say you make plans and God laughs?
Yeah.
But I don't really like that expression, but my God doesn't laugh at me, but I understand the premise. So exactly. I just thought that would be that's such a cliche. You should market it or copyright it that, and then COVID laughed. Like, I was going to do that. I mean, how many times could everybody in the world say that?
Right. I mean, it was like, yeah, okay. But it was exactly how it was supposed to happen. Exactly how it was supposed to happen. Had I gotten that job that I went to school to get, that I put myself through this program to get, everything in my life would be different, and I would not be in my soul center right now. I would be heart centered for sure.
Mhm.
I mean, I always showed up authentic and me, but I was never like, I didn't live in my core values and my passion and purpose every day.
Oh, it's
That's the
interesting
difference.
that you just said I would be heart centered. So then it sounds like there's like maybe 3 or 4 centers. So when you said I wouldn't be in, I thought you were going to say you would be in your head.
Mm-mm.
So you're saying there's head centered, heart centered, soul centered.
Exactly. Very good. Mike can explain the 3, and he's awesome at explaining it.
All right, if you want to.
Great
at this
question,
moment.
John.
So, okay, so the way that I look at this is, and the way that I explain it is, mind-centered is when you're stuck in ego, when you're reactionary and actionary, when you are the absence of relating by emotions. So, and you're living in your subconscious, the patterns, behaviors, and routines that you've created over the course of your life without questioning them. And they can be good or bad habits, right? Doesn't mean that they're either, but it's not questioning yourself, right? So when you move to heart centered, you get in your feels a little, you have a little emotion, you have empathy, sympathy, you do things from a very heart centric place. You're relatable to others on an emotional level, and you're doing things based by your heart and guided by your heart, and trying to really be authentic. You're authentic and genuine on that level. When you're soul centered, it takes it a complete level deeper, right? Soul centered is when you are radiating at such a high vibration that you speak everything from your soul and it radiates through your heart and mind. You question your subconscious. You don't fall into patterns and behaviors and habits. You're always you're living in fulfillment. You're living at peace. You're living at wholeness. You found your personal freedom. You know, you're living within your core values daily, and you're self-aware to the point that you want to stay there. Don't want to leave it. And that's, I believe, the difference. It's a completely different way of life. And it's not something I've ever thought of, ever heard of, ever even had a concept or a clue what it meant until January. And it was purely inspired by just knowing Annie and having Annie in my life. Like,
well, I mean, the things that we've gone through in our struggles and the thank you for the credit, but the ways that we've always done things and separately in our lives, and the struggles that we've been through, and the ways that I always came back to being heart-centered, and I really showed up authentically. I really was truly me, but I didn't even understand my core values because I was living as they were imposed on me from other people, which is what happens with many people, their parents or their guardian or their people in their family or their friends. You're living in this other way. And it's like, wait a minute. And the story about my core values, just to bring one more story into it, is I was looking at them a while ago, and I was looking on a sheet that had like 150 words of, things that could be core values, what mattered to me. And I of course I picked, empathy, and I picked compassion, I picked honesty and trust, and those are huge for me. But I looked at this word, it said freedom, and I swear to God, Joan, I laughed. I said, why would anyone pick that? What do you mean, like, so they're not in jail? Like, that's really what I thought to myself. And then as I excavated them and looked further and further into what my core values, what makes Annie, what makes me me, and me show up every day authentically, and how do I live into them? It's personal freedom. That's like my overarching value that is woven throughout the fabric of my being, that when I can show up as me, truly me, and be accepted and accept myself for me, that's when I'm the truest me.
Okay, so let me ask Mike first, and I'll come back to you. Mike, what are your core values?
For me, it's overarching of truth, living in my truth, standing up for my truth, being in my truth, blunt honesty, transparency, empathy, perpetual growth and learning. I need to always be stimulated to grow and learn. That's some of them. I mean, I broke it down in a very analytical way because my mind just works that way. So I did spiritual ones, I did emotional ones, I did mental ones, and then I did what I'm looking for in a partner, because I had to break it down 4 ways just to try and get my brain to understand it. And there was tons of overlap between them, right? Like some of them covered all the areas, but I just needed to understand it on each level to get my mind in place. And one other thing I wanted to say about being soul-centered is it's being self-aware and avoiding your escapisms, right? It's going through, not around, being present. That's part of being in your soul center. I had every escapism under the sun. I've tried them all. Didn't matter what it was. And I talk about it openly. It just doesn't matter. It was anything to fill a void other than, face things.
Yeah, we were talking about Brene Brown, and I just listened to the part of her book that said, basically, she goes on and on and on about, there's probably 5, I don't know, a bunch of obvious ones, right? Alcohol, drugs, food, sex, pornography. She talked about eating a muffin and shopping and
love,
yeah,
relationships.
Sex. There's a sex and love addicts program, but it's just amazing.
I always question that though. Why do you want to put a bunch of sex addicts in a room together? What do you think's really going to come out of that?
I think it's okay to put the sex addicts, but then to put the love addicts in with them, then that's I'm not judging. I'm not judging.
Not a judgment, but I'm just curious what you expect from that, because that's kind of lofty.
Well, that's the same thing. You can ask the same question about drug addicts. What are you going to do when you put a bunch of junkies in a room together? I mean, we are like, we could be like, let's party, or we could be like, let's turn over our will, right? Turn it over.
What is blunt honesty mean?
It means the truth, no matter what the impact is. My truth
to yourself
and to others. I'm very direct. I'm very blunt. I'm very upfront. I'm very, at times, harsh. The harsh I don't necessarily always mean, but I do have a habit of being harsh. And for me, it's not sugarcoating. It's just going directly to whatever it is.
You should be from Philly, because
it's where I'm moving when I'm done here.
That's the way Philadelphia people in Philadelphia talk.
The grit.
I guess I'll fit in.
Yeah, totally. And Annie, what are your core values? You have freedom.
What's that?
You have freedom. Or is that
personal freedom is the overarching, so that's woven throughout. Empathy is huge for me. Trust is huge for me. Honesty is really big. And compassion is really big too. I have that piece in me that
both have several that are the same.
Yes, there's overlap. And there's another one. There's harmony is really big for me. I love harmony. It makes me feel whole when there's harmony.
Okay, let me go back to some other things. I like that you call what you're doing a movement. I don't know if you saw Hamilton either on Disney or in person.
I didn't, unfortunately, but I know how amazing it is.
It's on Disney. It's on Disney, so you can watch it. And at one of his lines, he goes, "It's not a movement. It's not a moment. It's a movement."
Exactly. That's a great line.
Our word choice is so powerful.
Languaging.
So powerful.
We talk about that all the time. And I talk about that with my clients a ton, about just because in my own experience, like my languaging matters so much. I mean, how I speak about myself, how I speak about the future, how I speak about this moment.
Exactly.
And I always fall back on that. That's an issue for me. Like I have to watch myself and check myself and how I'm languaging everything. So it's a good point, Joan. It's really important.
Let's see. Sometimes I have a hard time reading my own handwriting. I liked, Mike, that you have a spiritual guide. Is that to the kids? Were you just talking to your children?
No, I'm just looking and trying to figure out why everything looks so angled. Anyway, go ahead.
I think your computer must be on an angle.
My computer's probably on an angle.
My stuff is straight and Joan's stuff is straight. You need a V8, dude. You need a V8.
It's really irking me, though. I'm gonna have to move the painting to make it crooked so it fits in.
His OCD is gonna kick in now.
It's driving me nuts.
Exactly. Just make the painting
It's
crooked.
making me want to sit like this so that I fit right in. Like if I can get the same angle, I'm just in a fun house.
Right.
And then it just
sometimes I'm on this and my guest is talking and I'm thinking to myself, is my neck weird? Am I leaning over to one? Like, am I actually centered? I should go see a chiropractor. So
I need you guys to get present with me. Get in this present room and stop looking at backgrounds. Come on. Right here. Right here.
So funny. You talked about you had a spiritual guide, and I would love to know how you found this person and what they help.
Okay, so it's a human spiritual guide because I have many spiritual guides.
Oh, sure.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so I went through an extremely traumatic childhood. I was abused as a kid, and my first near-death experience, I was 4 years old. From that point forward, I was spiritually awake completely. All my gifts were present. True empath, healer, clairvoyance, everything at 4 years old. It's not a lot to handle.
No, not at all.
And, so it made going to school and dealing with teachers and dealing with students and hearing everybody and feeling everybody's emotions, pure enjoyment for everyone. But
I just want to let anybody that's listening know that
he's being sarcastic.
I am sarcastic.
He's being sarcastic.
Beyond belief. It was the most painful, excruciating thing I could ever imagine. It was worse than getting beaten. It was worse than emotionally being dragged into the ground. Having all these gifts put upon me at that age, knowing what I knew and having my knowings at 4 years old, and not being around any physical human in my life that was able to explain or understand it to tell me I wasn't crazy. Because I truly thought I was crazy. I went to therapists and psychiatrists and neurologists to get brainwave scans done. Really legitimately thought I was crazy. So I started drinking at 9 to numb it all out. And I started doing hardcore drugs by 12 to continue to numb it out because eventually the alcohol didn't work. Slight tolerance issue. I've had between 10 and 13 near-death experiences in my life. Between ODs and car accidents and drownings and all sorts of fun stuff.
Okay.
It's either Evie or Sammy.
It's Evie, sorry.
Yeah. You're fine.
She wants to go skateboard in the front of the house.
Tell her to bring chalk. Make another hopscotch. Anyway,
Yeah, exactly.
So basically, I've had guides come in and out of my life at different times. When I was 27, I had one come into my life that manipulated me, twisted me, used my abilities with a very bad intent involved. Shut myself down again, settled into a marriage that I had no interest in being in, with somebody that I had no interest in being in a relationship with, let alone being married to. That's where my 3 children came from. And I went to an event and don't know why I did. And when I was at the event, this person spoke and I reached out and said, we have to talk. And we spoke within a week and a half to 2 weeks, and we started talking weekly after that. And that's just how it happened. And again,
this was the good? This was after the bad experience.
This is now. Oh yeah, this is now. This was back in last June, July, because as I started doing the emotional work and as I started, really working on myself, all my abilities really came back to the forefront. So I had no choice but to deal with them, because still at 41 years old, I had no idea how to handle them. I knew what they were. I knew how they could be used. I knew what I could do with them, but I still didn't understand what to do with them. Now, keep in mind, at 4 years old, when I had my near-death experience, I was told what my purpose is in this world. So if you want pressure as a 4-year-old, just, have a near-death experience, come back and let them tell you what you're here for. And it was everything, right? It was just so much on my shoulders at that age. And carrying around being an empath and feeling what the other person that was abusing me, feeling what they were feeling at the time, was just, it was torture. Like, it was true torture. I was tormented. emotionally and spiritually tormented as a child. And that's why being seen by Annie was just, I mean, there's no other way to explain it. I mean, it was serendipitous, or it was synchronicities, or it was the universe. I mean, God itself, higher power, source, whatever you want to call it, literally probably plucked her and threw her at me, because there's no other way it would have happened. There just isn't.
Well, you know, look at how many things we don't see on LinkedIn. You know what I mean? Like, what is the logarithm of you actually seeing Annie, you actually seeing his post?
Well, especially, Joan,
right?
especially at that time in my life, it was, I mean, the most tumultuous, not the most, but like a pretty tumultuous time. I was trying to finish up school. I had broken up with my fiance. I was trying to live my life for the first time on my, like, alone since I was 14 years old. I was trying to figure out work, all of these things. The fact that I was even on LinkedIn to see his message was out of character for me. Like, I wasn't like how I am now, where I'm active every day.
Like, I'll see someone's post and then I get distracted and I want to see it again, and then I'll go back on and I literally can't find it. And maybe I didn't get the person's name. I just like and I wanted to make a comment, and then I'm like scrolling and scrolling. So that's amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Pretty cool. I mean, truth of the matter is, like, something came over me, because I don't even remember, like, I don't remember doing that. It didn't like impact me where I was like, oh my God, I have to reach out to this man and say this. I just did it. Right. And I wasn't commenting actively. I wasn't active on the site. So it's even more crazy.
Mm-hmm. Another thing I wrote down when you were talking, Mike, was you were saying that you had never been seen like this before. And it just made me write down, you were ready to be seen, because you had done all that work.
Oh, no, this is before the work. Oh, no, this is before the work.
Oh, it was?
Oh, yeah, no. This was before the work.
Oh, that's amazing.
Because when I said you need to read Brene Brown, he goes, look, I don't read and I don't write, so I'm not going to do that. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, let's start this over. And I got tough lovey. I was like, listen to me. So I sent him the audiobook, like online, sent him the audiobook. And that's when he just dug in and started doing it. And I guess just took my advice and started writing, and just changed his whole life. But look, he can give me as much credit as he wants. He did it. I mean,
exactly. Exactly. And then, Mike, you said it changed everything. And I always tell my clients, it's like a mobile above a child's bed, which they don't really use very much anymore. But when you move one piece, if you click like the whole thing, or like dropping a pedal in a pond, it just goes. We don't even know when it. That's amazing. And then another thing I wrote down when you were talking, Mike, about crying, I just wrote down uncried tears. That so many of us have pushed down and pushed down and pushed down and pushed down, or put up with, or endured, or tolerated, and it's all shoved down. So I think like there's like a sea or a tsunami of uncried tears out there. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, in the past year, I probably cried the Pacific Ocean. I mean, like, there hasn't been a single day probably that has passed that I didn't cry. So, I mean, it's just all come out. Like, I've released it. I'm done carrying it anymore.
That's amazing.
I don't bury things. I don't compartmentalize anymore. I don't hide things. I don't go to my escapisms. You know, if I'm happy, I'm happy. If I'm down, I'm down. It's okay. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a boomerang to both sides. There's nothing's perfect. You know, the house is a mess. I have 3 kids running around. They're all at the neighbor's house right now. It's the only reason it's quiet. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's okay. It's okay right now. It's all okay. You know, they'll be back in camp, and in a couple weeks, my schedule will lighten up a little bit, and I can get back to cleaning and getting everything done the way that it was before.
Yeah.
You know, getting heads down, getting a lot of stuff done the last 6 weeks. So I've had to have a lot of self-compassion, a lot of grace, and just a lot of self-forgiveness, because this stuff makes me nuts. When things aren't in order and there's chaos around me, it usually freaks me out. But because of where I'm at right now, and because of what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and who's by my side doing it, the other stuff doesn't seem to matter as much. I don't care as much about the chaos. I am really bulletproof to it all. It doesn't impact me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Kudos to you. I thought it was very interesting that you both talked about like a parallel. No, Mike, I wrote it down when you talked about it, but then Annie, I think, kind of talked about it too, like this parallel journey, like almost like two ships in the night that sometimes go boop, and they're back, like, or like a pinball machine where you just kind of, and then you're back on your path, and then boop. Yeah, amazing. Anything else that you wanted to say? I know I wrote down something else. Anything else that we haven't covered that you wanted to? Oh, here it is. Mike, you talked about the mind is the ego. It's reactionary and actionary. So I always teach my coaching clients, and when I'm doing training, the difference between reacting and responding. And let me hear what you have to say to that. And your friend Donica Gunther is here.
I spent my whole life reacting. It wasn't until Annie told me, take a pause. And that didn't work for 5 months. But what it did was it slowly broke my subconscious, and it slowly broke my habits. My habit was I had to respond immediately. I had to react. There had to be a reaction. There had to be.
That's what we were taught too, Mike. We were both taught that.
It is. Without a doubt.
You react. There's no pause. It's just how you feel, and you do it, and you say it, and you sever relationships, and you cut cords, and you have big, gigantic fights, and and then you act like everything's fine. It's just, that's what you do. That's what we were both taught.
Absolutely.
So
we don't have that. Exactly. It's like you're lost, and you have to, again, I'm dating myself, but I don't have time to stop and ask for directions. This was before everything was in our phone. Like, I'm lost. So I don't have time for a pause because I'm busy. Oh, you know what? Brene Brown talks about busyness as an addiction. And I love that she said that.
Yep, I did that one too.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of people go. And I say that they're just not able to be.
Right. A human doing is really a human being.
It takes practice to be. I'm not great at it. It's every day it takes practice.
For me, I mean, I was out every night before I came here to get my kids. Every single night. I was never home. I didn't want to just sit with myself. I was out every single night. I had to be somewhere, had to be around someone, had to be around some people, had to be in crowds. And I was more alone than ever. I was miserable. I hated myself. But I didn't want to sit with myself. And if I was in circles, I was able to distract myself with whatever the instant or being present in their BS was. And being sucked into having to be present in somebody else's BS to feel. And that's where I was. And that's how I lived. I had to be around people. I had to go out. I had to, how can I stay home? I'm single. I'm this. I'm separated, whatever you want to call it. I mean, she's been living with her boyfriend since 3 weeks after I left. So, I'm pretty much single. But I was back in Florida and by myself, and just, I had to go out every night. I couldn't stay home. I could not stay home. I refused, because staying home meant sitting with myself. So I found anything. I found helping people as a escapism. I would spend days and hours helping people.
Right.
Just to fill the void.
When I'm pointing a finger at you, I have 3 pointing back at me kind of thing.
Well, we're all mirrors, right? I mean, our souls are all mirrors of each other.
I swear, all my coaching clients, I'm like talking to them and the words just go boom, boom.
Yeah, always.
Every time.
Shoot. Have you ever thought about trying this? And then the little voice goes, hey, maybe you should try that.
Right. Well, in case you don't listen the first time, then your next client needs to hear the same thing. If you don't listen to that one, then the next client needs the same thing too. So when you start asking yourself, why do all my clients need the same thing? Probably time to look in the mirror, because, obviously you're not listening. But this is the way it goes, right? Like, we all get stuck in that. We all, go through these phases and these different escapisms. My strip club addiction, I didn't know what intimacy was until this last 6-9 months. But I always wanted to go to strip clubs, and I always had to be the center of attention, and I always had to try and win the game or whatever it was. For me, it was always about just proving my worth to others, because I couldn't prove it to myself. I wanted the attention. I wanted the pretend emotions. I wanted the surfacey stuff, because, I was numb. I didn't know what real intimacy was.
Well, it makes me think of dopamine and serotonin and norepinephrine and stuff like that, because there is a chemical reaction in our body when we win, whatever that is, when we get whatever that is. But I understand. I just want to make sure before I go on to the next thing that it's possible that I interrupted you when I asked you about the difference between reacting and responding. I want to make sure that you think that you got a good response. You feel good about that? Okay. Is there any, this is kind of total off the wall. Do you think it's being soul-centered is similar to being a stoic?
If somebody wants to give me a definition, I'll go with it, or Annie can answer.
Let me look it up, because I find that sometimes being soul-centered is what I think. Have you ever studied Marcus Aurelius?
I mean, I know who he is.
He's one of my favorites of all time.
Well, he's the stoic. He's very, okay, a person can endure pain or hardship without showing their feelings or complaining, or belonging to the Stoics. These are not good.
No, Donica just gave a good definition if you want to put it up.
Oh, okay, here we go. Donica, thank you. Hang on
He's
a
on it.
second. When you discover what makes you happy, you enjoy to be by yourself. Pausing is the reflection of your actions and acceptance of yourself where you are. Meditation and self-care are a must.
I think that's part of it. I think soul-centered is even deeper because you're living in your core values, you're living your soul's purpose, and you feel more fulfilled, more at peace, more personal freedom than you've ever felt in your life. Mm-hmm. You're free of outside judgment. You're free of, not self-judgment, but sort of, it's this awareness. It's this overall awareness that I can't explain fully at its depth, but like I used to tell myself that I was over-analytical in all the worst ways possible, and that it was my biggest weakness, was being so
You were gonna say now you say you call it hyper acutely self-aware.
I say it's hyper acutely self-aware, but I started reading that response instead and kind of lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I was reading it on my phone before that because I'm shutting the screen. This is what I do. My ADHD kicks in and it's like I need 72 things going on.
I'm with you. Soul-centered is a center for anyone, secular or religious, from any faith tradition or spiritual practice, navigating any type of loss or seeking physical or spiritual, emotional or spiritual healing. Okay, now let me read what Stoicism is. An ancient Greek school of philosophy. The school taught that in virtue, the highest good is based upon knowledge. The wise live in harmony with the divine reason that governs nature and are indifferent to the vicissitudes of fortune and to pleasure and pain. It's like you're just in a place of neutrality at all times. Like nothing.
No, I'm definitely not there. Nope, not there.
Soul-centered is from the very depths of your soul. You stand in your purpose and your mission. I don't know how to explain it other than to say, you know it when you're there. Mm-hmm. It takes over you. There's nothing can get in. You're bulletproof. Mm-hmm. That's what it feels like, a bulletproof feeling. There's a certain part of the Serenity Prayer, actually, we were talking about addiction and alcoholism. There's a certain part of the Serenity Prayer that is woven into it too. Accepting mm-hmm. the things you cannot change. Right. I mean, it's a feeling of breath and fullness and wholeness. I mean, to bring it back to that, it's like you understand what peace really feels like.
Yeah.
And that's really what we designed breath around, right? The breath framework. And that is trademarked, by the way.
I always see that, the TM on the
Well, not when I type it because I can't find that little symbol to save my life, but that's okay.
It is living. It is living.
I don't know where it is, but it's okay.
One of your kids can help you with it.
Maybe. Who knows? Who knows what they'll do? But like, it's just, I don't even know where I was going anymore with that train of thought.
And that's really it. I mean, that's the bottom line. You want to know what soul center is? It's about peace and finding your wholeness, being whole, being oneness.
And freedom, like you said.
And personal freedom.
And then when I'm there, I guess this is my question, kind of regards to stoicism. When I'm there, I'm a little bit different than other people.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I find myself, because I feel like I'm soul-centered and a little bit of a stoic, that I don't quite fit in.
No.
Because I'm unusual. Like I was at a party recently where everyone was debating about getting the vaccine, and people that don't get the vaccine are this, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just in this position of neutrality. Like, if you want to get it, get it. If you don't want to get it, get it. Like, and so I'll just end there because Donica has one more comment, and then I want to make sure you have time at the end. I think you are free of ego and live in the reality of life without judgment, just love and harmony.
It's a little like Buddhism.
Yeah,
it's not quite as beautiful as that, I don't think, Donica. But thank you. There's a little bit of that. It's hard to put in words. It's like
that's good. So we have to attend. We have to attend to understand.
Yes.
Well, but also keep in mind, everybody has their own version of it.
Yeah,
exactly.
You only get to your own soul center. I mean, you can't get to Annie's. Annie can't get to mine. You can't get to mine. I can't get to yours, right? We all have our own version of soul center. We have to find our unique gifts and abilities and purpose in this world and find our own personal freedom, our own personal fulfillment. And then from there, we can reflect it back outward. And all we did was outline steps and ways that we got there and that we mirrored getting there. And then we've turned it into a framework for others to find their path and their way.
If they choose.
If they choose.
To do the hard work that it involves.
Exactly.
And even if they choose to, they've got to be willing to do the work. It's not only choosing, because they can say, oh, I'm going to pay you. I'm going to try this. I want to do the one-on-one coaching. You're going to fix it all for me. That's not the way this works. Like this is not for the faint of heart. This is not an easy road, but it's the most rewarding one ever. There's nothing more rewarding than finding yourself.
Oh my gosh, 100%, 100%. And then something that you just said reminded me of Marianne Williamson, where she says, you know, as you let your light shine, you give other people permission to let their light shine, which is what better gift? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, can you give? Can you believe the hour has like flown by?
I believe it. I mean, it's quick. It goes quick when you're having great discussion. Thank you for having us.
So many great discussion points.
Thank you.
So now, is there anything that you want to say? How can we get a hold of you? What are you currently working on that you want us to sign up for? This is your
plug time. We don't need to plug. It will find us if it needs to find us, but they can go to our website at annielieb.com, or they can find us on LinkedIn. There's the rest will just happen as it does.
Awesome. Any closing remarks, questions, statements, criticisms?
Thank you for having us, Joan. You're wonderful.
Oh my gosh. Let's stay in touch. I just love
For sure.
it. We have to continue the conversation. Okay. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for stopping by.
Bye. Now it's going to put us back in the green room and we can chat for a couple minutes.